Welcome. In the last video, we saw comparison operators. And now we're going to use some comparison operators with the new keywords else and elif in this video. So this video is going to be all about using these new keywords and understanding what they can do for us in the context of an if statement. Let's begin by doing an example of when the else keyword comes into play. Right now I have a variable called name, which is equal to Sarah. Now if I do a statement such as name is equal to John, clearly John is not Sarah, but let's print something out anyway, John. But we want to be able to do something if this condition is not met. And that's exactly what the else keyword does. So the else keyword is an extension of the if statement. So you put the else keyword, you put a colon after, then you can say name was not John. And then instead of executing this part of the if statement or branch, it executes this, which says name was not John. So that is all the if statement does and ever will do. Now let's have a look at what elif can do for us. Suppose I have a similar kind of statement. So name is equal to Emily. If name is equal to Emily, then we'll just print out her name. Now we want to do multiple checks for the variable name until we've exhausted all the checks we want to do. So one way to do this is to just put another if statement and check if name is equal to another name. However, sometimes we want to make this check stronger by putting the elif keyword, and in that way it's kind of an extension of the if statement that continues on from the previous statements. This means that the previous conditions of the if statement that we've checked are definitely false, while we don't have that. We have multiple if statements in a row. So let's see an example. Elif name is equal to Mike. And then I can print Mike. Now we know that if name is equal to Emily, this will execute, but that means we'll never reach this part of the statement. But if we reach this part of the statement, then we know name is equal to Mike, but furthermore, we know that name at this point was not equal to Emily. And we can keep chaining on these elif statements as much as we like. So name is equal to Bob. Print Bob. And elif statements are right after the if. They are not a separate condition. Suppose I were to copy this block and paste it right here and get rid of these elif and just make it an if. Well, now each of these if statements, I put a space between them, just be very explicit. These are independent statements. This is one continuous statement that checks this condition, and then if that one's false, it checks the next one, and it checks the next one until a condition is met or not met. These could all be false. But at the end, we can say, if we ever get to this else condition, then we know for a fact that name was not Emily, was not Mike, and not Bob. And that is certainty. Now we can also use these elif and else statements with other things like numbers. This might be slightly more clear. So if n is less than 20, then I'm going to print n less than 20. Now I could have another if statement that also check it, but I'm going to use an elif just because we're still talking about the same variable. It's usually good convention to put an elif and not multiple if statements. So print n is less than 40. Let's do another one. N is less than 60. Print n is less than 60. Let's change this to be, say, 55. And this else block gets executed, then we know n must be greater than or equal to 60. So if I run this, we get n is less than 60. So what it did is it first started off with this condition, checked if that was true. It was false, so it moved on to the next block. It said, oh, is n less than 40? No, it's not. So I'm not executing line 32. Is n less than 60? Oh, why? Yes, it is. So I'm going to print this. However, if we do, say, 77, then it goes through all these statements, and then finally we should get to the end and say n is greater than or equal to 60. And indeed, that is what happens. In this video, we saw how to use the else and elif keywords in an if statement. In the next video, we are going to dig even further into conditional logic by introducing the and, or, and not operators.